live.
All right, we're live. You okay, Jeff? You hear us?
Sound great, guys.
All right. Well, we're going to get started here in an effort to stay on schedule and be mindful of your time. So, welcome. We've got Jeff Minnick here from Directed IRA out of Phoenix. I was actually just asking Jeff how hot it was there. So, thank you for being here, Jeff. We appreciate the partnership we have with you and Directed IRA. You've done a lot of stuff for our community. You attended our event in April in Lakeland, Florida. So thank you for that. And Jeff's here today to talk to us about all things Directed IRA. So Jeff, tell us a little bit about yourself because you've been in this industry for a while. It looks like Directed IRA got founded in 2018, right?
That's correct. Yeah, we were founded by tax attorneys. So our co-founders are Matt Sorensen and Mark Kohler. Matt Sorensen wrote the Self-Directed IRA Handbook, which is the very first training material I got when I started working in the industry. And he's looked at as kind of the expert or the guru, if you will, of self-directed IRA accounts.
Okay. And how long have you been in the industry? Because you were with some other IRA custodians prior to Directed IRA. So you've been around for a while. So tell us a little bit about your background and then kind of your journey over to Directed IRA.
Oh yeah, I've got a little gray hair. You can see it here. I've been in the industry a while. Actually, I've been working in the self-directed IRA industry for the past 14 years now. So I originally got started with the company Equity Trust, which was based out of Ohio, which is where I'm from. Worked there for 7 years. Then I moved to Provident Trust Group when I moved to Arizona. They're based out of Las Vegas, Nevada. And they have since been acquired by Ascensus, which is a 401k company, plan administrator. And then I found out that Matt Sorensen, the author of the Self-Directed IRA Handbook, the book that taught me basically the industry, had opened up his own trust company right here in my backyard in Phoenix. So jumped at the opportunity to go work with the industry expert, and am very happy working here with the team at Directed IRA now.
Well, I can say I have read that book, and it is an amazing resource if you want to become educated about IRAs. And I believe, can you purchase that on Amazon?
Yeah, so you can purchase it on Amazon. It sells for about $20. I think it's $19.99. And you can also purchase it from mattsorensen.com. He's got a ton of great information and a wealth channel on that website. So easy to pick up that book if you're interested.
Great. And on a side note, you guys also do in-person events. We got the pleasure, Kade and I and our CEO, Andrew, of attending your guys' event. I believe it was last October in Phoenix. And so that's also another great opportunity to become educated about IRAs. I'm sure if you guys reach out to Jeff, he can get you more information about that. I think your event this fall is in California. Is that correct?
Yeah, we'll be in Orange County, California. So not a bad place to come out and learn about self-directed IRA accounts. We'll be doing it again this October. So if anybody's interested, wants to attend, I've got a link for some discounted tickets. So please reach out to me after this webinar, and I'd be happy to share that with you.
Yeah, that was a great event. It was 2 days of speakers and also networking opportunities. So I encourage anybody that's, listening to this presentation, if you want to become more well-rounded in the IRA space and, really learn what it's about, what kind of opportunities are out there, that's a great in-person event. I can't say enough about that. So we're going to dive into this. We want this to be interactive. We had some people send some questions in prior to. Kade is going to kind of keep an eye on the online attendees. And if you guys have questions, we want you guys to ask them. This is your chance to pick Jeff's brain. Anything you wanted to ever know about an IRA, he's your guy. But I think let's kind of just start at the beginning for somebody that knows nothing about this. And this buzz is all over. You see it all over the internet. It's on all kinds of social media posts. What really is a self-directed account?
Yeah, and I'm glad we're starting there because that term self-directed really gives an indication of how this account works. It is an IRA account that you, as the account owner, have complete control over. You basically get to make all of your investment decisions. Now, having that self-directed account with the right custodian, like Directed IRA, is what's going to open up your investment options. So you could have a self-directed IRA at, like, let's say Fidelity or Charles Schwab, where you pick your own investments and there's no advisor on the account that's managing it for you and charging a fee for that service. But if you have that self-directed IRA with a firm like Directed IRA, we're going to be able to allow you to invest into things like promissory notes or private lending. You can invest in private funds like debt funds, real estate, private companies, cryptocurrency, all kinds of different investments, and still get all the tax benefits of doing that in your IRA account.
Yeah, that's a great point, because Kate and I work with a lot of clients that will, come to us looking to make an investment into a debt fund like what Central Lending manages, and they'll tell us, "Oh, my IRA is self-directed. It's with Fidelity." And it is in a sense self-directed, but what they don't typically understand is that they only have the ability to invest in options that are on the Fidelity platform.
A pre-selected bundle of assets.
Yeah. So yeah, it is to some extent self-directed, but they still are limited on what they can choose from, correct?
That's exactly right. It's like you're choosing from their menu of options, if you will. It's like going to Burger King and trying to order a Big Mac. It's just not something that
That's a great
they
analogy.
offer.
I love it. I love it.
So by
And
IRA company, we're going to open for investment options.
right. So staying on that topic, if somebody were to want, if somebody already had an IRA account set up with Fidelity or Schwab or whoever, a more traditional umbrella, and they truly wanted to make an investment into an alternative investment, and correct me if I'm wrong, they have the ability to move that account from Fidelity over to a custodial account with Directed IRA, and then go from there and make an investment into an alternative investment without having any tax implications. Because I think that's a misconception. A lot of people say, well, I don't want to move it from Fidelity. I'm going to have to pay all these taxes. They're not technically taking a distribution. Can you kind of speak to that and, in layman's terms, explain that? Because I get a lot of people that kind of panic thinking, I don't want to move it to Directed IRA. I'm going to have to pay all these taxes on it.
Yeah, no, I think a lot of people are fearful of that. This is their life savings. It's their retirement account, and they don't want to do something that puts it at risk or creates a taxable event, creates penalties or fees. So you're absolutely correct. If you have an IRA account right now, IRA accounts are portable. So if you have a traditional IRA, a Roth IRA, or a SEP IRA, you can transfer any portion of that at any time to a new IRA company or custodian. And you don't have to move the entire amount or the entire balance. You can do a partial transfer. So it really does give you a lot of flexibility if that's where your retirement money is saved. Now, if you have a 401k plan, it's a little bit different. And I know many people, if you're a W-2 employee, you're saving in a 401k. I always ask the question, is that 401k plan through your previous employer or with your current employer? If it's with your previous employer, it's just like an IRA. You can move it at any time. If it's with your current employer, we might have to check a little bit further into it to see what your options are.
Because my understanding is if it's with your current employer, there aren't as many options to move it.
We could potentially be losing out on the match and a lot of other stuff there.
Yeah.
But Jeff,
yeah, you're absolutely correct.
Old 401k, what does that look like? As far as the common question I get when I send people to you guys is, how long does this take? If they've been contributing to a 401k for years, how long is it going to take to get moved over to a self-directed IRA?
It's a great question. So it's 2026, and when we process rollovers from 401k accounts, it's still being issued as a check and sent through the US mail. So it can take some time to get your rollover from your 401k company to your IRA custodian. So you're absolutely correct. I say on average, you're looking at about 2 to 3 weeks from the time you make a request to roll the funds over to the time they actually respond and process that and generate a check and then mail it. So it can take some time. So if you are thinking about investing through a self-directed IRA, just keep that time frame in mind. This is not something that we're setting up overnight. This day and age of Venmo and Cash App and Zelle, your retirement money doesn't move as quickly.
That's brings me. There's so much I want to ask about. So let's talk about. I think what I want to talk about first
We're
is
just going to breeze past the fact that these giant institutions are still sending the money by check.
Well, I mean, they don't want to give up your money anytime soon, right? But talk a little bit from a high level about the different types of IRAs, because you even mentioned it. You said traditional, Roth, and SEP, and there are some very clear differences from a tax perspective. And then I want to segue into that about some of the contribution limits, because a lot of people will say, well, oh, that sounds great. I want to do a Roth IRA so I don't pay any taxes on it when I actually take the distribution on it. So I'm going to go deposit $50,000 into a Roth IRA. That's not the way IRAs work. So maybe if you can just kind of speak to the differences between the IRA accounts, and then we can talk about how you get money into those accounts.
Yeah, happy to do that. Unfortunately, they don't teach you this in school. There's no retirement, 101 class that they kind of cover for you. So happy to kind of go over the different account types. I would say that the one that most people are familiar with is going to be the traditional and Roth IRA, and they are very different. Your traditional IRA, that is tax deferred, meaning it's money that you haven't paid taxes on. And most traditional IRAs, if you're funding it, let's say, with a contribution out of pocket, you're working, you've earned some income, you paid taxes on it, and now you want to set some aside for retirement. When you make a contribution to a traditional IRA, they'll give you a tax write-off or deduction on your current income taxes for making the contribution. So it's money that you haven't paid taxes on yet. Once you have it in the traditional IRA, you can invest it, let it grow. It grows tax-free, but eventually, once you hit retirement age, which is 59 and a half years old, and you start to take distributions out of the account, you'll pay taxes at that point. That the concept behind the traditional IRA being you're retired at that point, your income's low. So if you pull money out, you pay taxes, but at a very low rate. The Roth IRA is the exact opposite. It's a tax-free account. The Roth IRA is my favorite type of IRA because where else can you grow money and wealth tax-free? So the Roth IRA is extremely powerful, and we are huge proponents of it. When you contribute to a Roth IRA, you're paying tax on the money going in. You don't receive a deduction or a write-off. When you make the investments within the Roth IRA, it grows tax-free. And the best part about the Roth IRA is when you hit 59 and a half years old, you want to pull money out as a distribution, your distributions are tax-free as well. So it's a great way to pay tax on the seed, the money going in, instead of the crop, what it grows to over your 20, 30, 40, 50 years of investing before you take it out as a distribution.
Yeah, they're pretty powerful. Now, on that note, can anybody open a Roth IRA?
Great question. The key to having an IRA is you have to be working and have earned income. So as long as you have earned income, you can contribute and save for your retirement in one of these IRA accounts. But I hear this common misconception for high income earners. I make too much money, Jeff. I can't put money into a Roth IRA. That is absolutely not true. You might have to jump through a few more hoops and do the backdoor Roth IRA strategy, which is a way to contribute into the Roth IRA if you make too much money. But you can absolutely employ that strategy and get money into a Roth IRA account.
And can you convert a traditional IRA into a Roth? Is that what a Roth conversion is called?
You nailed it. That's it. When you do a Roth conversion, you're taking your traditional IRA, again, that tax deferred money you haven't paid taxes on yet, and you're making the decision that I'm willing to pay the taxes now to convert it over to Roth. Again, paying tax on the seed rather than the crop. If you have another 10, 20, 30 years of an investment horizon, why not pay tax on your traditional IRA now, continue to invest that money under the Roth IRA where it'll grow tax-free and pull the money out tax-free.
That's a great strategy.
We do have a question for you from the audience, Jeff. It says, her name Emily Smith, do you only roll over 401ks funds from 401ks with previous employers? I have a 401k with my current employer that I would like to roll over to an IRA.
That's a great question. So if it was through the previous employer, I'd say you've got the green light. Go ahead and roll it over to an IRA. But because it's through your current employer, you'll really have to check with your plan. Each company that administers a 401k plan as a benefit for their employees controls their plan and sets up the plan rules. Many plans now have a little more flexibility where you can do what they call an in-service rollover. So while you're still working, you might have access to some or all of the money to roll out to an IRA. But it's important that you check with your plan, see what your plan allows for. There are still many plans that don't allow you to move the money while you're employed. And if you think about it from their perspective, if they let all the employees just roll money in and out of the plan at will, it's hard to account for that. So that's typically why they have that restriction while you're currently employed.
Okay. I also have another question with inherited IRAs. So I have some clients that are like, listen, my goal is not to really ever tap into my IRA. They have other streams of income coming in, but they have concerns with if and when I pass and my kids inherit this IRA, are they going to pay taxes on it? Is it true that if it is a Roth IRA, the inheritant of this IRA would not also pay taxes on it? Is that true or not?
That is absolutely true. So with the Secure Act 2.0, if you inherit an IRA, you get to use that IRA for 10 years before you have to distribute money out of it. And if you inherit the IRA, you get the same tax benefits. So if you inherit a Roth IRA, you can take tax-free distributions from that Roth IRA. What a nice gift to leave someone.
Yeah. I better call my parents, see if they have Roth IRAs. Good questions. And yeah, a lot of this is, I mean, I've told my kids, go open a Roth IRA. Like, they're so powerful. And also traditional. I was under the conception or the understanding that there were limitations on income to open a Roth IRA. I have since learned about the conversions. My husband and I have done conversions. But one of the other things I want to talk a little bit about, and Jeff, you and I have talked offline about this, and this is something that my husband and I are looking into, is solo 401k plans and the power in those, and specifically for people that invest in real estate, but that are also W-2 employees as well. So can you maybe kind of give us a little bit of insight on what that looks like and kind of the benefits of it? Because I think I always thought that solo 401ks were for people that were only self-employed, but you've actually kind of enlightened me with some information about it. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah, happy to discuss it. A solo 401k plan, not everyone qualifies. Typically, you have to be self-employed with no employees, but they're very powerful accounts. Let's just say you have a side hustle. Maybe you have your W-2 job, and maybe that employer at your W-2 job offers a 401k plan. it's probably a group 401k plan so that you and all your fellow employees can participate. So it covers many individuals or participants. If you have a side hustle though, and you're the only employee, or maybe you and your spouse or you and your business partner, that company or that business could adopt its own solo 401k plan. And the benefit of the solo 401k plan is it has a very high contribution limit. With IRA accounts, you're only able to put into the account $7,500 if you're under 50 years of age. If you're 50 and over, it's $8,600. With the solo 401k plan, you can put over $70,000 into that as a contribution each year. And I always say with the solo 401k plan, if you're the employer and the employee, you're the best employee that company's ever had. So if you have a 401k plan through your W-2 employer, they may match as an employer match to the account. They may give you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5%, maybe a little bit higher. With the solo 401k plan, you can do up to a 25% employer match. So that's how you're able to get a very large contribution into that solo 401k plan each year. It's a great vehicle for those that qualify, and anyone with a side hustle that generates earned income should be looking and considering that type of plan.
Now, is there income restrictions? Like they have to have, their company has to make X amount of dollars a year to get qualified, or can you walk through what that looks like? I can't just go create an LLC and then go get a solo 401k, can I?
Yeah, great question. So again, the key there is that earned income. You could set up an LLC that holds a rental property. That kind of activity is not going to generate earned income for the purposes of contributing to a solo 401k plan. But let's say you set up a property management company to manage those rental properties. Now you start paying yourself a salary, some earned income for operating that management company. That amount of income that you're paying yourself each year is going to determine how much you can contribute to your solo 401k plan. So if I only show, let's say, a few $1,000s in income, it's going to limit my contribution that I'm able to make to the solo 401k plan. But if that business is very profitable and I'm taking a pretty large salary, now I can make a very large contribution potentially to that solo 401k plan if I'm really looking to maximize that.
That's interesting, because I know a lot of real estate investors that it's a side hustle, and my husband and I are a perfect example of it, and we self-manage our rentals. I'll have to look into that though, because they don't make a ton of money off of managing the rentals, so we'd probably have to.
What about a fix and flipper that's kind of project specific? I know would that qualify under earned income? You do 2 projects a year. It's not consistent, so I don't know where the qualification is. This is kind of just a personal question.
Yeah, fixing and flipping properties, again, as long as you're showing earned income, and I usually tell clients, consult with your CPA or your tax professional on this to know what your earned income is that qualifies for the contribution. But yes, you want to have business activity that then allows you to take advantage and contribute to this solo 401k plan.
If you run your course on a solo 401k, getting ready to retire, could you roll that to a Roth?
So the solo 401k plan, you can contribute tax deferred, like a traditional IRA, or after tax, like a Roth. So it really has both buckets. I would say many people prefer the Roth component of the plan. I want to save after tax so that it can grow tax-free and I can distribute it tax-free. So the solo 401k plan really has both, and it gives you a lot of flexibility. Maybe 1 year with your business, you're looking for a deduction or a write-off to help offset some income. So you might contribute to the tax deferred or traditional component. Another year, maybe you're just looking to maximize your retirement savings and then allow it to grow tax-free. So you might contribute to your Roth IRA. So the beauty of the solo 401k plan is you have options, and based on your financial situation that year, your income that year, you can decide where to contribute and how to contribute, to help save for retirement.
What are some of the most common mistakes you hear about that people make when they set up these accounts? Because there are some limitations. There's things called prohibited transactions. Like, what are your top 5 most common mistakes you encounter with your clients when they're trying to manage these types of accounts?
I think we hit on one of them already, which is over contributing. With IRA accounts, they're pretty restrictive in your contribution limits. But for solo 401k plans, everyone's income is different. So we sometimes have clients that open a solo 401k plan and they try to put in the max 70,000 plus contribution. They don't have the income to support it. So that's a common mistake we see. But when it comes to investing the accounts, thus far we've been talking about getting money into a self-directed type of account, IRA, Roth IRA, solo 401k. But the fun part is making the investments and watching the account grow. So when you're investing your self-directed account, the IRS does have some rules that you need to follow. And the biggest rule is not self-dealing. When you invest your, let's say, self-directed IRA, you can't invest and buy property from yourself or transact with yourself. Unfortunately, the IRS thought of that. But if you already have a rental property that you own, or you have some promissory notes or some private lending that you've done, and you own those notes personally, you can't sell or assign those to your retirement account, your self-directed account. You may want to give yourself a little discount or a sweetheart deal. So the IRS just says no self-dealing. So that's a common issue that I see clients will ask about buying stuff that they already own. That's a big no-no. A rule that you want to familiarize yourself with is who can your IRA transact with? It can't transact with you. We've covered that. But it also cannot transact with your spouse, your parents, grandparents, children, or grandchildren. So you always want to think up and down your family tree. You could say, well, it's not my property or it's not my promissory note, that it's my spouse's, and my spouse is going to sell it to my Roth IRA. IRS thought of that too. So can't do that. But when I sometimes hear people say, well, I just can't transact with family members, that's not necessarily true. You can't transact with the spouse, parents, grandparents, children, grandchildren, but your brother, your sister, your aunt, your uncle, your niece, your nephew, those are all fair game. So you could do transactions with your retirement account and that group. So to say family isn't necessarily fully true.
So you could lend money to your Aunt Sally if she wanted to buy a piece of real estate. I mean, you could lend her money for anything, I guess, for that matter, as long as there's a promissory note, right?
That's exactly right. You'd still have to have, some sort of contract, promissory note drafted up.
Right.
The beauty of the IRA account, though, is self-directed IRA is you guys can agree to those terms. So you could loan money to your Aunt Sally, and maybe she pays you, an interest rate, just straight interest back to your IRA account. And that generates your growth, that generates your rate of return. Those are the kinds of investments that people with self-directed IRA accounts are doing.
And I think on a side note, that is the benefit to working with a custodian like Directed IRA, because there's also this buzz out there, hey, get a checkbook IRA, you don't want to have to pay Directed IRA all these fees, and you can do it yourself. And I will tell you, I've seen very sophisticated people be successful at managing a checkbook IRA, and I've also seen the other side of it, where they commingle the funds personally, and it's just a disaster. So I can't encourage people enough to work with a custodian like Directed IRA, because what you guys do is you put the guardrails on, right? Like, you have to, once the accounts are set up with Directed IRA and you want to make that investment, they're going to kind of preview it and say, hey, this is something you can do, or no, like, probably not a great idea. And they're going to keep it compliant, because the risk is, from what I understand, if you participate in a prohibited transaction of some kind, the IRS can come in and wind your IRA down. Is that not true?
That's exactly it. The penalties can be pretty severe. And that's exactly what it's called, a prohibited transaction. So if you do something you're not supposed to, or you break the rules, that IRA could cease to exist January 1st in the year that prohibited transaction occurred. So, our role as a custodian for your self-directed IRA account is not to advise you on what investment to make. This investment A is better than investment B. These are the terms of the note you should look for, or how you should structure it. Our role is to hold the investments and educate you on what these rules are, give you those guardrails. If you're trying to do something blatantly prohibited, our investments team is not going to process it. So we can help educate you on what those rules are, get you comfortable with that, so you can go make good investment decisions.
I love it. And you guys at Directed IRA have a product that will help people set up a checkbook IRA if they truly want to go that direction. Is that correct?
We do. So we are big proponents, and we support the checkbook IRA. I can give you a brief explanation. At the end of the
Why
day,
don't you explain what that means?
Yeah, at the end of the day, you still have to have a self-directed IRA account. So that's where it starts. That could be your traditional IRA, your Roth IRA, that solo 401k that we talked about. But I always tell new clients, imagine that kind of up at the top. I've got my IRA account, my self-directed IRA, or my self-directed solo 401k. And I could make investments out of the account. If I want to loan money to Aunt Sally, I could draft up that promissory note contract, give that to Directed IRA, and we'll help release funds, send that to Aunt Sally, and that becomes the investment you're holding in the account. But with the checkbook control, you're essentially saying, I want to control who releases the money. I want to have more control over that. So you'll start with your self-directed IRA account, and then you'll set up a special purpose LLC. This is not an LLC that you want to go on LegalZoom and try to set up yourself. There's special provisions you want to include in the operating agreement when you set up this LLC. But your self-directed IRA account is going to make a private equity investment. It's going to invest into that LLC. So all of that retirement savings in the account now gets invested into this private company. Your account becomes the member of the LLC. You, as the account owner, can be the manager of the LLC. That LLC has its own EIN number, so you can go set up your own bank account for the LLC.
Okay.
That's how you get the checkbook control. Now, when you want to invest and loan money to Aunt Sally, you control the checking account. You can actually send the check, the wire, the ACH from that LLC's bank account to Aunt Sally. And again, Aunt Sally's promissory note is owned by your LLC, which is under the umbrella of your IRA. So everything rolls up under that self-directed account, keeps it all tax sheltered for you. It's a really great vehicle for those that want that additional control. But like everything else, there's repercussions, there's rules. With that, you have to have increased responsibility. So you really want to know how to use that LLC properly and be well versed in what you can and cannot do, because you don't really have the oversight of your custodian anymore. So it's a great structure, but you just want to make sure that you understand it and use it properly.
Now, can you have multiple IRAs that are invested into that entity? Could you have a husband and wife each have an IRA that could hypothetically invest in that LLC, or does it only have to come from Jeff's IRAs?
It's a great question. There could be a single member LLC. So if it was just my Roth IRA investing, it's single member, but you could actually have a multi-member IRA LLC. So you and your spouse could pool capital into that LLC. You, your spouse, and your kids' Roth IRAs could all pool capital and start lending that money out or investing in a debt fund. So a multi-member LLC can be very powerful because it allows you to fund the LLC from different sources. Maybe it's all self-directed retirement accounts. Maybe it's some self-directed retirement accounts and some personal funds. So you can get creative here in how you're pooling capital and the sources of that capital, and then go out and make underlying investments. I have a client that has self-directed Roth IRA accounts for him and his spouse, and he set up self-directed Roth IRA accounts for his 14 grandchildren.
Oh, wow.
Now, these grandchildren can be very young, so he was able to basically use their pictures in his marketing material. They were able to claim earned income and make a contribution to a Roth IRA. But he, at the time, was making just $5,000 contributions to Roth IRAs for his grandkids. $5,000 may not be a lot of capital to go out and make investments, especially if you're trying to do real estate.
Right.
But by pooling all of these accounts together through a multi-member LLC with his own account and his spouse's account, the grandkids now get to participate in all of the deals, and they're all sharing in his rate of return. So he's actually using the account for real estate and private lending. And let's say he's lending money out at 8-9% interest. That rate of return is growing all of those respective grandchildren's Roth IRA accounts at that same rate. It's very powerful.
I need to do that. I just became a grandma last week. I think I
Hey,
need
congratulations.
to go open an account for him.
There you go. Perfect start.
No, I have heard that, and I think some of the challenges and this is just feedback we get from clients is, well, I don't have enough in my IRA to do anything. I've only been contributing for a couple years at 7,000. Well, this year, what is it, 7,500 into a traditional, if you're under the age of, is it 50?
That's right. Yep.
And then 8,600 if you're over the age of 50. And so they don't think they have enough in their accounts. And I don't think they realize that they can potentially roll over a 401k from a previous employer. That's pretty powerful. And two, they just don't think they have enough. But I think that strategy of a checkbook and doing a multi-member is pretty powerful. There's more opportunity to deploy that.
Yeah, what I see a lot of times are, clients are making contributions each year, adding that money to their retirement savings. But where is the bulk of the money coming from? It's coming from that old 401k plan or that thrift savings plan or 403b plan, with that old employer plan. They're rolling all that savings that they've been making through, salary deferrals and payroll deferrals. They're rolling it to their IRA so they have more control over it, more options to invest it, and then that allows them to have more capital to invest. It's important to make those contributions each year if you can, but that's how you're able to really get a large balance in the account that you can then use for some investments.
And the other strategy that I don't hear is as common is, people have these small balance accounts and they don't realize that they can actually buy real estate. Their IRA can buy a piece of real estate, sell that piece of real estate, and there are some, caveats to this, but hypothetically, a large portion of the profit can go back into their IRAs, tax deferred or tax free, correct?
That's exactly right.
And they can actually borrow. Their IRA can be a borrower. It's called a non-recourse loan. There's not a ton of lenders that do it, but there are some out there. It doesn't mean because you're buying a property for $200,000 that you necessarily have to have $200,000 in your IRA. And it is a little more complicated than I'm making it sound, but that is another way to get bigger dollars back into your IRA than just the $7,500 a year that you can contribute to it, correct?
You're absolutely right. So just because you're using your IRA money doesn't mean you can't leverage that. Like you said, there are non-recourse lenders. They loan money to your IRA. You don't provide a personal guarantee. They're not loaning to you, so your credit score doesn't come into effect. They're loaning to your IRA. So the collateral for that loan is typically the investment or the asset that's being purchased. If you're familiar with DSCR loans, non-recourse loans are kind of similar to that. So we can connect you with those resources, lenders that provide that type of financing. But I think what I am more intrigued by is the creative deals that people do. If you've heard of subject to real estate investing, that's a really low dollar strategy that allows clients to invest and maybe acquire real estate, or wholesaling, getting something under contract and assigning it to a buyer within your network for a wholesale fee. That could go back to your Roth IRA tax-free. I've seen people start with as little as $500 in a Roth IRA account, do some really creative deals, and grow that account to tens of thousands of dollars over the course of a year. It's, again, takes that creative thinking and maybe a network to be able to pull that off. But it's the beauty of the self-directed IRA. You don't have to invest in stocks and bonds and mutual funds, something that you don't know or maybe aren't even comfortable with. You can invest in something you know better, something you understand. Private lending, loans, real estate, cryptocurrency. There's some really exotic investments that can be made, but it just gives you more control and more options.
Which, that was part of what I enjoyed about your guys' event we went to last fall, because you guys had a lot of keynote speakers
From all sorts of
that were
strategies.
talking about, there was the gentleman that was talking about investing in movies. And I've just always been so focused on the private lending, the debt funds, the real estate component of it. But there was some really interesting people that got up there and spoke about different things that they were investing with their IRA accounts.
Yeah, it's easier to say what you cannot invest in.
Yeah.
The IRS gives us pretty clear guidance there. They say you can't invest in collectibles,
Okay.
wine collections, which become bottle collections if you drink it, firearms. There's a few things that you cannot invest in. But you can't invest in life insurance contracts or S corporations. But outside of that, you can be very creative. We have clients that invested, like you said, in movie production. We have clients that have invested in cattle. Our co-founder, Mark Kohler, was so intrigued by it, he did it with his own Roth IRA. So not a common investment. I don't understand cattle, and I wouldn't be comfortable investing in that. But for those that do, invest in something you understand. One of the kind of most unique investments I saw was Super Bowl tickets. Somebody bought Super Bowl tickets with their self-directed account. A Super Bowl ticket or a ticket to an event like that is actually considered real estate. So you can own that in your retirement account and then sell that for profit. And that goes tax-free back into your account.
Never heard of that.
You just sparked Kade's interest.
Scalping tickets.
There's your side hustle.
Right. That's awesome.
There we go.
That's
a good one.
Jeff, one question that I get asked all the time: if somebody's rolling over a 401k IRA with a traditional guy to directed IRA, is how long? Obviously, we talked about like the admin side of things, how long that takes. But once that's taken care of, are their funds ready to deploy immediately? And what is that process and fees when they want to make an investment out of their new IRA? What does that look like?
Yeah, it's probably good we just go over the overall process. It is 3 simple steps. It starts with opening your account. So if you're going to roll over your 401k plan to an IRA, they need to know, where's it going? We have to have the destination set up to receive the money. So you always want to open your account first. But then after you roll over the funds, which we talked about, can sometimes take 2-3 weeks. Once the money is deposited in your account and the funds clear, let's be honest, it's a check. So we have to wait for that check to clear. But once it clears, you can begin investing. So as soon as the account's open and funded, you're ready to deploy that capital. If you're trying to set up the IRA LLC structure, we got to create the LLC. We got to invest the money into the LLC before you can deploy it out of the LLC's bank account. So that maybe adds a little bit more time. But yeah, you could be up and running and investing in a very short amount of time.
a little bit about the fees. We've got about 15 minutes left. We're not going to end it early, but I want to at least have enough time to talk about like the costs. I mean, obviously you guys are our for-profit company, but talk a little bit about that. And Jeff has been kind enough to give us a offer for all of our people that are attending and registered. So I want to give them a chance to let you guys know about that as well. I think Kade has it actually up on the screen too, but
Yeah,
talk to us
so we
about
have
what that
a
looks like from a fee perspective.
great question. Yes, we do charge fees. We are a for-profit business, but we charge very nominal fees, I think, if you compare us to maybe some of our competitors. When you
Yes.
create a self-directed IRA account, whether it's traditional or Roth IRA, for example, you'll pay a one-time $50 account establishment fee to get the account created. And then you'll pay your annual fee, your first year annual fee up front. Now that annual fee is $495. It's a flat fee. It covers holding up to 3 different alternative assets in your account. And we provide a $50 discount, first year discount, to anyone that is referred to us from Central Lending, Heather and Kade, just as a thank you. So you get that discount. But for those of you that registered for this webinar and are here, live listening to this, we have a special promotion. When you open your account, if you enter the promotion code Central200, which I have back here behind me, that's going to give you an additional $200 off your first year. So we really want to encourage you to get started, open your account, take control of your retirement funds, and invest in something you're more comfortable with. So we really want to lower that barrier to entry, help you get started, and give you a great discount that first year.
We appreciate that. And then talk a little bit about, so this is one of the things that Kade and I have this conversation with people, especially the ones that try to buy promissory notes with their IRA dollars, with their self-directed accounts, because there are transaction fees, right? Do you guys charge, like once I make the decision what to invest in, is there a fee to get that money to that operator? Is there a transaction fee for that?
There's a one-time $50 investment processing fee when you
Okay.
make an investment. And the reason we charge that is we're going to get copies of your investment documentation.
Yeah.
So if you're doing a promissory note, the lender on that note wouldn't be Jeff Minnick, for example. It would be Directed Trust Company for benefit of Jeff Minnick's Roth IRA. So we want to review any contract or investment documentation to make sure everything is titled properly so that your IRA is listed as the investor and not you personally. And then we're also going to release funds. So we're loaning money to Aunt Sally. We're going to send the check or the ACH to the bank account. So you're going to pay a one-time $50 investment processing fee for that. If you were invested, let's say, in a fund, like a debt fund, we're going to get a copy of your subscription agreement. We want to see on the subscription agreement who's subscribing. Well, again, it's not Jeff Minnick or Kade or Heather. It's going to be our IRA accounts. So we do charge an investment processing fee when you're making an investment, and it's to make sure that that paperwork is done correctly. All the T's are crossed, all the I's are dotted. That really becomes the asset that you're holding in your account. So if you think about investing in Amazon stock, in place of cash, I hold stock. With a promissory note, in place of cash, I now have this contract, this promissory note that has all the details about how my account's going to be paid back, and that becomes the asset I'm holding. So that's kind of the extra work that we're doing that Schwab, Fidelity, those other large firms really have made the business decision. They don't want to deal with that. Investing in publicly traded stock is very easy. They don't want to have to review your subscription agreement or your promissory note. So that's why you're going to pay a fee to review that and make sure it's all done correct.
It's worth it. Now, do you guys also do that if it was a checkbook account as well? Would you review the documents even though I have control of the money and sending it? Is that a service you guys provide for those types of accounts?
So when you're setting up the checkbook LLC, we're going to review the LLC documents because
Okay.
that's the investment the account makes. But once the money is in the LLC's checking account, you as the manager of the LLC are going to draft up your promissory note contract
Okay.
or your purchase contract for real estate. That'll be titled in the name of the LLC, and you'll be responsible for sending out the capital from the LLC's bank account. So typically that's not involving directed IRA. And sometimes people prefer that because they don't have to pay that $50 investment processing fee for us to do that.
Yeah.
I would say for any individual that's going to be doing a high volume of investments, having a checkbook LLC can cut down on some of the fees that you would pay to directed IRA as custodian. But again, like we talked about, that additional responsibility to make sure things are done correctly, you just want to make sure everything's titled to your LLC. Now, obviously, we'll help answer any questions you have about that. But again, we can't give advice, so we just have to be careful. We can't tell you exactly, hey, this is how you write up the contract in the name of your LLC, but we can give you guidance on how to do that properly.
Gotcha. Yeah, it comes up a lot because Kate and I deal with people that buy promissory notes often. We do have the debt fund, but we also have promissory notes available for purchase. And I think one of the challenges we have, or at least these types of clients have, is they'll have 50 grand in one IRA and then 30 grand in another, and they're going to buy a note for 80,000. Well, now they're getting charged, 2 transaction fees. They're also getting charged servicing fees on a monthly basis. And so it's something to just consider when you're looking at deploying that capital. The other challenge with promissory notes, sometimes if they're short term, which is what we offer, then they might get paid off in 3 to 6 months. Now they got to find another home. The money goes back to directed IRA. So I think where we've really been able to help a lot of our clients is in our debt fund, because they can put the money in the debt fund. I mean, we have a fixed rate option also with the ability to reinvest their earnings on a monthly basis, because that's also a challenge, right? It's like, great, this guy paid me, but now I've got this $800 sitting in my IRA account at Directed and I can't redeploy it. So I tell people, proceed with caution. I mean, these are powerful accounts and great, tax strategy options, but those are all things to consider. Is like, okay, like you were saying, high volume of transactions. I think the checkbook is the right way to go, especially if it's a active real estate investor that's buying real estate with their IRA dollars, versus the guy that's like, I've got 500 grand, I just want to set it and forget it. I'm not taking distribution anyways, but I don't want it going back into my account and sitting there. So, I mean, I know I'm kind of all over the place, but these are things we hear all the time.
It's calculating your true ROI based on those fees.
Yes.
Right? Just because the promissory note says 10%, are you really getting 10%? The fees are minuscule, but they still do affect things, right?
Yeah.
But it's definitely an important thing to look at when you're making these type of investments. And we understand why there's a fee involved to review all those documents, because there's about 400 pages of them.
Yeah. Kade knows because he's in the weeds helping our clients fill out the forms, which is another thing with custodial accounts. Every custodian has a different form. You guys mostly want the same things, but Kade is like a master at the forms and submitting things and working with custodians. So there is, there's a little bit more to it than just, hey, I'm going to move my money over to Directed and now I'm going to deploy it. We try to help, but they are self-directed accounts for a reason. You, as the IRA owner, have to have a little bit of responsibility in it as well.
Yes.
Okay, so.
Oh, go ahead, Jeff.
No, I was just going to say, with great power comes great responsibility. But, if you know the rules, these tools can be really helpful. I love the fact that your fund allows you to reinvest the dividends, because some clients don't want to have to deploy the capital. So they have that option of just letting it reinvest in the fund. But for those that are looking for deals or have that kind of deal flow, they can redeploy that capital. And I would just also mention, you can invest in publicly traded stocks, bonds, and mutual funds here too. Primarily, people use this for the private or alternative investments. But let's say you did have that $800 interest payment coming back and you didn't know where to place that money, but you wanted to deploy it. You could tell us to invested in the S&P 500 mutual fund or something like that. So that's still an option here at Directed IRA too.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because not all custodians allow that. So that is something for everybody listening to be mindful of, is really, every custodian's different, and you really just need to do your due diligence and find the one that fits the best for you. But I can say that our clients that work with Directed IRA are very happy, and we're thankful for the relationship we have with you guys.
Tell them that. Just because they're an alternative, it's alternative. They specialize in alternative. Doesn't mean they hate the stock market. You can still purchase stock there.
Yeah.
You can still go do your typical stuff. You are just in more control of it. We do, Jeff, have some audience submitted questions. People can submit questions before this. A lot of our guys watch this on the record. But we have a couple minutes here if you want to answer a few of these. And this is one that I actually get a lot, and I'm curious your answer. So from Mark, it says, when someone hits retirement age, how do distributions work if my entire IRA is holding a private investment?
Great question. Now, legal retirement age is 59 and a half years of age. And that's when the IRS says you can start distributing money out of your account. You're not forced to, but if you want to start distributing money, you can. Now, what if your investments are in real estate? That's not really a liquid asset. I don't want to sell, my property just to be able to take a distribution. So you don't have to begin taking distributions until required minimum distribution age, or RMD age. Now, the RMD age used to be 72 years old. It's going to bump up to 73, 74, eventually 75. But that is the age when the IRS is basically saying, okay, you're getting older. You've been able to keep all of this money tax sheltered in your IRA, to start to take distribution. You may have to start distributing money at that point. Now you may have to consider, if all of your investments are tied up in, let's say, real estate or illiquid assets, you may need to start, selling properties or distributing the property itself. I would also just mention, with Roth IRAs, there is no required minimum distribution age. You pay taxes on the money going in. The government is allowing you to pull that money out tax-free. So they're not going to force you to pull it out. There's no tax revenue to collect. So a Roth IRA, you're not going to have that issue or that problem. But I have come across this scenario. Let's say a client had a self-directed traditional IRA, and the only asset that was in the account was a promissory note or a property. They could distribute the asset. If this property is worth $100,000 and my required minimum distribution tells me that I have to take a $10,000 distribution, I could distribute 10% of the asset. I have to update the title. That property is now held 90% in my self-directed traditional IRA, but the other 10% is owned by me personally. I've satisfied my RMD requirement. I've distributed $10,000 worth of value, but it wasn't a cash distribution. I distributed the asset instead.
I didn't either.
Okay.
But it makes sense.
Definitely. We have, this one kind of runs together. So there's from Linda and Carol here. We have, if I roll over my IRA to a self-directed IRA account and I can't find an investment for multiple months, what happens to the money sitting there? I'll let you answer that one before I roll the second part there, because that's kind of a specific question.
Yeah. So if you roll the money over to the IRA account, and let's just say it's cash that comes over, that cash is going to be FDIC insured and protected up to $250,000, but it's not going to be generating any kind of interest since it's not invested. We don't pay interest on cash on accounts here. So again, there are those more traditional options of putting that money to work in the S&P 500 mutual fund or an ETF or a stock, something publicly traded, until you identify that right alternative or private investment that you want to make. And that's common for individuals that maybe are in between private or alternative investments. I'm a real estate investor and I've fixed and flipped a property in my IRA and I don't have the next property lined up yet. I can still put the money to work in other investments, like stocks and bonds and mutual funds until I find the next property.
That's a great option. Because I think one of the biggest mistakes I see with these types of accounts is people get all hyped up, they move them over to a custodian, and then they never deploy them. And it happens all the time.
Yeah, they just want to say they have one.
And they're getting the annual fee, and it's like, but I don't know. I think they just get a little bit of analysis paralysis out there, but it happens. I hear it commonly brought up. I never did anything. It's been there 2 years.
Yeah, and we can't recommend investments or give you a list of investments to choose from. But I would say if that's a problem that you have, that's exactly what our event that we're going to be attending in October is about, the Alternative Asset Summit. Again, it's not there for operators to solicit their investment. They're there to educate on what those different options are. So if you're having a hard time finding the right alternative investment, I would encourage you to attend an event like that where you can learn about the different opportunities that are out there. And if one sparks your interest, obviously reach out to that operator, that company, learn more, do your due diligence, and then maybe you'll be ready to deploy your capital.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's a great event to be at.
Last one here, because we're at the top of the hour. If someone watching has an old 401k or they want to get started, what's literally the first step that they do? Where do they go?
Call me. Let's schedule a call. I'll help you get the account set up. So we'll go through that 3-step process together. We'll open your account. We'll get that account funded by rolling over that old 401k, and then you can make your investment decisions from there. So anyone that's interested in getting started or just has more questions, maybe it's your personal finances and you don't want to share that here with everyone, reach out to me. I'm happy to help address those questions, talk about your personal situation, and help you get started if that's what you'd like to do.
And the QR code, that goes to schedule a call with Jeff?
Yep.
Okay. Well, we appreciate your time as always, Jeff. I learned a few new nuggets, and I thought I knew a lot about IRAs, so thank you.
Excellent. Well, happy to share this knowledge, this 14 years of self-directed IRA experience I have. And it's always a pleasure chatting with you, Heather, and you, Kade. You guys are great. Love the team at Central Lending and really appreciate you having me on today as a guest.
Yeah, we appreciate you as well.
Of course. Thank you, Jeff.